Hello, this Mystico video counting down my favorite Japanese anime movies not directed by Hayao Miyazaki was sponsored by Anthony over on Patreon. If you want to throw your support and possibly suggest some video ideas of your own, guaranteeing their spot on the schedule, just visit my Patreon. Link is in the description. And now, on with the show. A couple months ago, I made a video counting down my favorite Hayao Miyazaki films. But of course, the world of Japanese animation encompasses other directors too. And I'm going to count down my favorite Japanese animated films brought to us by other talented filmmakers. And here they are. When Marnie Was There. The Japanese animation industry has a history of making intimate dramas about characters discovering themselves. And this film by Hiromasa Yonebayashi nicely fits into that category. Detailing a young girl trying to cope with living in a new town with a new family, the movie captures the isolation and loneliness one might feel in that situation. Anna is slightly flawed, but we also understand her struggles and how she's able to escape when she encounters Marnie. The story takes some clever twists and turns and is not afraid of being an emotional story with some rather heart-tugging revelations. The way Yonebayashi and the Studio Ghibli animators depict this seaside town is quite stunning and add to the atmosphere of the piece. It's a lovely film that deservedly received an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature. Whisper of the Heart. A beautiful film about the power of creativity and imagination that has a relatable quality to Shizuku's desire to write her own worlds, and the animation team does an amazing job of showing her writing open up. The relationship she develops with a young man is nicely conveyed. We see the pressures and struggles when somebody puts so much into their work, and how creativity can be both healthfully nourishing, but also shouldn't get in the way of your life. It is really poignant in all of those areas. That Shizuku's in-universe story is itself one that works tremendously well on its own, adds to the success of the movie. Sadly, this would be Yoshifumi Kondo's only directorial project, as he passed away in 1998. And I feel we missed out on seeing many more great films from this talented artist. Steam Boy. An elaborate action movie, and I do mean action, Katsuhiro Otomo's steampunk vision is quite a marvel, with a ton of thought clearly put into the various machines that populate this world. This is one of those films that pummels you with action, but in a way that does not get too disorienting. Part of it comes from the titular hero, who presents a great optimism in how to use technology, and I like how the movie shows him struggling with the two battling sides of his family on who has the best ideas when it comes to utilizing these machines. Otomo directs the action with a ton of confidence and imagination. The climax is one of the most massive action sequences I've seen in an animated film, and it's continually enthralling. Steam Boy had the unfair disadvantage of Otomo following up one of the most renowned Japanese animated films of all time, but I think he did a bang-up job of bringing this world to life. The Cat Returns. A spin-off of Whisper of the Heart, this expands on the world created in Shizuku's story and creates a charming and funny movie with all sorts of cat-related hijinks. The movie finds a lot of humor out of a girl who turns into a cat and the various felines she comes across. It's primarily a good old-fashioned adventure story with some amazing locales, but there's a heart underneath all the comedy too. We definitely feel for Haru's predicament even as all these funny events happen to her, and the Baron is a more than charming participant. The story gets more outlandish as it goes on, and even when clocking in at a brisk 75 minutes, The Cat Returns never feels like it's rushing through the main plot points. It's a highly enjoyable journey through magical lands with cats galore. What's not to like? Little Nemo, Adventures in Slumberland. This might be considered a controversial pick, since this was an American-Japanese co-production and quite an infamous one, with the likes of Hayao Miyazaki and Osamu Takahata having a miserable time when they got briefly involved in its making, which lasted many years. However, I still find this to be an utterly charming, captivating, and imaginative take on Winsor McCay's classic comics. It whisks you away to this magical world with wonders and also some darkness. The animation combines Japanese sensibilities with an almost Disney-like appearance, and that combination works splendidly. Little Nemo manages to jump between moments of intensity and scenes of childlike awe with ease, and the story takes full advantage of this being a dream world not operating on normal rules. For such a disastrous development it had to endure, with many different hands putting their influence on the project, the final result still works. The Secret World of Arrietty. Adapting Mary Norton's classic books of tiny people living under the floorboards, I love the scale and size of this movie. You really feel like you're getting the sense of the borrower's living space, as well as the risk Arrietty and her father take when they venture into the main house. The relationship developed between Arrietty and the sick boy who ends up at the house is rather touching. The central antagonist is also a great one, as we see her desperation at trying to prove the existence of these minuscule characters. I also have to praise the use of sound, which is magnificent and captures the right atmosphere. This was an absolutely charming film and a joy to experience on the big screen. The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. Asao Takahata's final film, for the animation alone, this deserves to be commended. Its illustrative art style captures the magic of this royal tale so magnificently. The movie so beautifully shows the difficulties of Kaguya as she tries to prove herself as royalty, also rebelling against the rules that restrict her. Beginning with her as just a little baby in a bamboo stick, Takahata remarkably traces her life story, with the whole movie feeling like a tapestry come to life before our eyes. One gets the feeling we're being told a story the same way people in Japan once heard them. There's so many delightful turns the story takes, and when magical occurrences happen, they easily work within the film's internal logic. Of the 5 strong films nominated for the Best Animated Feature Oscar that year, Tale of the Princess Kaguya would have gotten my vote. Akira. The movie that essentially became the gateway to anime for Western viewers, it deserves its status in animation history. From the opening, Katsuhiro Otomo establishes this futuristic world, initially drawing us in with the fantastic motorcycle chases, and then bring forth a commentary on the abuse of technology and power. As visually brilliant as the film is in its depiction of Neo-Tokyo, Otomo doesn't let that get in the way of the characters and the problems they're facing. We feel the desperation Kaneda faces in trying to help and then defeat his friend, and how Tetsuyo's newfound abilities are having an unhealthy effect on him. There are real stakes occurring, and I love how the movie just gets more outlandish as it plays on. The first time I watched Akira, I wasn't sure what to make of the finale, but the more I have watched it, the more I've appreciated those final story directions. Pom Poko. It's a story of raccoons trying to save their forest from development. Of course this movie appeals to me. Asao Takahata crafted a highly imaginative story that expands on the Tanuki folklore as we see the human influence over these creatures and how they slowly integrate themselves into that society. Their designs are immensely appealing, with different styles being utilized, and I also like the sense of community. There's a great history there with the Tanuki, and Takahata portrays that wonderfully. Much discussion has been made about their pouches, but they add to the creativity on display in the different ways they utilize them. And yes, it's pretty funny, whether you're familiar with Tanuki or not. At the end, it all builds to a touching message about respecting the animals of nature and how they deserve a place in society just as much as we humans do. After all, they were here first. And my favorite Japanese anime not directed by Hayao Miyazaki is Grave of the Fireflies. One of the saddest, most harrowing war films, or, well, one of the most saddest films ever made, Asao Takahata effectively shows the effects of war on children. We see Seita's stubbornness, but also his need to protect his younger sister. Takahata portrays the devastation of war on the population of Japan without sugarcoating anything. That also makes the few moments of happiness Seita and Susuko experience via the titular Fireflies all the more special. The color palette is handled properly and pulls you into this war zone. And of course there are the emotional elements, which pull the proper gut punch. And part of why it works is how we sympathize with these two. Grave of the Fireflies really highlights the ability to tell any story in animation, and I think this use of the medium heightens the emotion of an already upsetting story. While Grave of the Fireflies is the kind of movie you need to be in the right mood for, it's one that should absolutely be watched, and one of Studio Ghibli's greatest achievements. Now, there are many strong Japanese animated films worthy of consideration that I may have left out, either because they didn't quite make the top 10, or I just have not seen them. So I do welcome any and all recommendations you may have. I look forward to checking them out. See you next time.